In December of 1872, a merchant brigantine was found sailing the Atlantic Ocean under partial sail, perfectly intact and completely empty of every living soul aboard. 10 people had been aboard: Captain Benjamin Briggs, his young wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and a crew of 7, and not one of them was ever seen again. The ship was seaworthy. The cargo was untouched. 6 months of food and water sat waiting in the hold. And yet every last person had gone, as though the ocean had simply reached up and taken them. The last entry in the ship's log was 10 days old. The only lifeboat was gone, and a single frayed rope trailed behind the hull into the black Atlantic, a thread connecting the living world to whatever happened out there. 150 years of investigation, inquiry, and theory have never produced a definitive answer. The Mary Celeste remains the most enduring maritime mystery in recorded history. Welcome, and thank you for joining us, because this is a case that demands another pair of eyes. We will lay every clue on the board as we go: the evidence, the timeline, the questions that have never been answered. And by the end, the verdict will be yours. Chapter 1: A Ship Sailing Itself. December 4th, 1872. The brigantine Dei Gratia was making steady progress across the North Atlantic, 11 days out of New York. At around 1 in the afternoon, First Mate Oliver DeVoe spotted something unexpected on the horizon. A 2-masted brigantine was moving erratically, her sails only partially set and badly trimmed. The Dei Gratia signaled her and received nothing back. The ship was the Mary Celeste, a 282-ton brigantine last logged departing New York on November 7th, 1872. She was bound for Genoa, Italy, carrying a cargo of 1,700 barrels of commercial alcohol. As the Dei Gratia drew closer, Captain David Morehouse saw no one at the helm. The deck of the Mary Celeste appeared completely deserted. What struck the crew of the Dei Gratia most deeply was the silence. Absolute, total, wrong. Think about what the Dei Gratia crew were weighing in that moment. A seaworthy ship, moving under sail, with no living soul to steer her. That combination, functional, provisioned, sailing, made no rational sense at all. When the boarding party finally climbed over the rail, what they found below deck was somehow more disturbing than if the ship had been wrecked. Let's open the board. The location: Atlantic Ocean, between Azores and Portugal, and Benjamin Briggs, the missing captain. Chapter 2: The People Who Vanished. In November 1872, Captain Benjamin Briggs was 47 years old. He had made 7 Atlantic crossings. A man of hard-won experience. His crewmen described him as cautious, deliberate, not a man who panicked. Briggs was also deeply religious. Faith was his anchor as much as seamanship. He brought his wife, Sarah Elizabeth Briggs, aboard for the voyage. Sarah was 30 years old, described in letters home as steady and unafraid of the sea. Their 2-year-old daughter, Sophia Matilda, was with them. 7 crew members completed the manifest. Seasoned sailors, not young men on their first voyage. These were men with families, wages owed, lives waiting for them in port. None of them had any known reason to flee a sound, well-provisioned vessel. Think carefully about what that tells us. 10 people with everything to lose, and something made them go. Sophia's toys were found still in the cabin, and that is the detail that will not let go. On the board so far, Benjamin Briggs, the missing captain. Now we pin up Sarah Briggs, the missing passenger. Chapter 3. What the boarding party found. On December 4th, 1872, the crew of the Dei Gratia spotted the Mary Celeste drifting erratically in the Atlantic, roughly 600 miles west of Portugal. First mate Oliver Deveau led a small boarding party across to investigate. The hull was structurally sound. No collision damage, no signs of fire, no breach below the waterline. Below deck, 1,701 barrels of commercial alcohol sat exactly where they had been loaded in New York. 6 months' worth of provisions were stowed in the galley, enough to sustain a full crew well into 1873. On the galley stove, the boarding party reportedly found a meal in mid-preparation, food that had never been eaten. In the captain's cabin, Benjamin Briggs's personal belongings were untouched. His charts, his pipe, his coat still hanging on its hook. The crew's personal effects, razors, boots, a sewing kit, were all present, as though their owners had simply stepped away. Even more striking, the ship's papers and navigation instruments were still aboard, items no captain abandons willingly. Deveau and his men searched every cabin, every hold, and found 10 people completely, utterly absent. The ship's only lifeboat was gone. And here is where I want you to stop and weigh something with me. The davits showed that the lifeboat had not been lowered in a controlled, orderly fashion. And whatever that means for the timeline of that last hour aboard, it changes everything. On the board so far, Sarah Briggs, the missing passenger. Now we pin up unknown, the cause unknown. Chapter 4. The rope trailing in the water. Among everything the boarding party catalogued, one detail kept returning to those who studied the case. Trailing from the stern of the Mary Celeste was a length of rope hanging down into the Atlantic. The rope had not been cut. Its fibers were burst apart, consistent with a sudden, violent load placed upon it. Investigators in 1872 concluded the rope had been used to tow something behind the ship, almost certainly the missing lifeboat. The lifeboat itself was gone, not damaged, not swamped, simply absent. We know 10 souls left the Mary Celeste in that boat, taking the chronometer and the ship's papers with them. They tied themselves to the mother ship by this single rope, perhaps to stay close while some danger passed. And then something snapped that rope. Here is where I want you to weigh something with me. What force, or what terror, breaks a rope rated to hold a loaded lifeboat? A rogue wave, a sudden sea quake, or something the people in that boat could not wait any longer to escape from. Each answer changes everything, because whatever broke that rope, it left the Mary Celeste crewless, drifting, and the lifeboat was never found. On the board so far, unknown, the cause unknown. Now we pin up 7th Nov, 1872. Mary Celeste departs New York. Chapter 5. 10 Days of Silence. The last entry in the Mary Celeste's logbook is dated November 25th, 1872. The handwriting is steady, unhurried, the hand of a man with nothing to fear. The position recorded places the ship at a point roughly 6 miles northeast of Santa Maria Island in the Azores. The weather, according to that entry, was acceptable. Wind moderate, seas manageable. There is no coded distress, no marginal note, no correction scratched over a previous word. The Mary Celeste was found drifting on December 5th, 1872, 10 days later. 10 days. And not one word was written to account for them. 10 people were aboard. Captain Benjamin Briggs, his wife Sarah, their 2-year-old daughter Sophia, and 7 crew members. None of them left a note, a signal, or any mark of farewell. Consider the timeline carefully with me. The ship was close to port. The conditions recorded were not dire. So, what could compel 10 people to abandon a seaworthy vessel? Somewhere inside those 10 silent days, a decision was made, urgent enough that no one stopped to record it. And when the boarding party finally climbed aboard, they would find something in the cargo hold that reframed every question asked before it. On the board so far, 7 of 1872, Mary Celeste departs New York. Now we pin up 25 of 1872, last log entry recorded. Chapter 6. The Cargo That Should Have Killed Them. The Mary Celeste was carrying 701 barrels of denatured industrial alcohol, a volatile, dangerous cargo. When the boarding party reached the hold in December 1872, 9 of those barrels were empty. The missing contents had not simply vanished. They had almost certainly evaporated. Denatured alcohol produces an invisible, heavier-than-air vapor that pools at the lowest point of a sealed space. Modern experiments with barrels like these have shown that vapor buildup can produce a sudden, violent pressure event, a blast of force without fire. Such an event would have been terrifying. A concussive roar from below, smoke with nothing burning, a hatch blown open. It would have looked, to every man aboard, like the beginning of an explosion that had not yet fully arrived. Now consider what you see on the evidence board. 9 empty barrels, a missing lifeboat, and a crew who left in apparent haste. What do you make of that sequence? If you were Captain Briggs and you heard that concussion rise from the hold, what would you do? The theory is this: the crew abandoned ship as a precaution, intending to wait at a safe distance until the danger passed. The ship did not explode, but the crew never came back, which means something happened in the water, and that is where we must look next. On the board so far, 25 Nov 1872, last log entry recorded. Now we pin up 4 deck 1872, ship found adrift, crew gone. Chapter 7. The Clues That Don't Fit. The simple explanation is panic. 10 people frightened into a lifeboat, leaving everything behind. But certain objects were missing from the Mary Celeste, and their absence makes that explanation harder to accept. The ship's official papers, registration, crew manifest, cargo record, were gone. The navigational instruments, the chronometer and the sextant, had also been deliberately removed. Someone took the tools required to find land, and took the records that proved who owned the ship and cargo. That is not panic. That is organization. And yet, the lifeboat carried no emergency provisions, no water casks, no survival supplies of any kind. The vessel's capacity was roughly 7 people, 10 souls, including a woman and a young child, almost certainly boarded it. Consider that for a moment. Papers packed, instruments secured, but no food, no water, an overloaded boat. What do you make of that contradiction? Does the careful removal of the papers suggest calm planning or something else entirely? Personal belongings, clothing, valuables, a family Bible were left untouched in the cabins. The evidence points not to people fleeing, but to people who fully expected to return and never did. On the board so far, Fours Deck 1872. Ship found adrift. Crew gone. Now we pin up Deck 1872. Salvage crew sails her to Gibraltar. Chapter 8. Every theory on the board. 6 theories have been pinned to this board, and every single one has a problem. Theory 1. The crew smelled alcohol vapor rising from the cargo hold and panicked, abandoning ship in haste. The 701 barrels of commercial alcohol were registered to Meissner Ackerman and Company, New York, loaded in November 1872. 9 of those barrels were later found empty, and they were made of porous red oak rather than the usual white oak. Yet the boarding party found no scorch marks, no burn damage, no sign of combustion anywhere aboard. Theory 2. A water spout struck the vessel, terrifying the crew into the lifeboat. Theory 3. A seaquake, a submarine tremor, shook the hull so violently the crew believed she was sinking. But the ship herself was structurally sound when the Dei Gratia's crew boarded her on December 4th, 1872. Theory 4. Crew mutiny. The men turned on Captain Benjamin Briggs, seized the ship, then disappeared. Briggs was known as a deeply religious, experienced master, and there is no record of any grievance among his small crew of 7. Theory 5. The crew of the Dei Gratia committed foul play, but their timeline from Gibraltar puts them hundreds of miles away. Theory 6. Insurance fraud. But the cargo was delivered and paid, and no claimant ever profited suspiciously. So here is where we are. Pause with me for a moment. Every theory accounts for some clues and demands you overlook others. Which contradiction can you live with? And which single clue, for you, refuses to be ignored? Because there is one piece of physical evidence the inquiry kept returning to, and it has never been fully explained. On the board so far, Deck 1872, salvage crew sails her to Gibraltar. Now we pin up a key clue. Missing soul lifeboat. Chapter 9. What the inquiry concluded. In December 1872, a salvage inquiry convened in Gibraltar to determine what had happened aboard the Mary Celeste. Frederick Solly Flood, Attorney General of Gibraltar, led the investigation with open suspicion. Flood believed the Dei Gratia crew knew more than they admitted. The Dei Gratia's sailors were interviewed separately, under oath, over several weeks. Their accounts aligned closely. Perhaps, Flood argued, too closely. A surveyor examined the Mary Celeste's hull and found no evidence she had been in collision or suffered a catastrophic flood. The cargo of industrial alcohol, 1,701 barrels, was largely intact, though 9 barrels were found empty. Consider what you know so far. No collision, no catastrophic flood, most of the cargo intact. What force could have driven 10 people to abandon a sound ship in the open Atlantic? After months of testimony and physical examination, Flood could prove nothing against the Dei Gratia crew. On 14th of March 1873, the court released the Mary Celeste to her owners and awarded the Dei Gratia crew a salvage payment, significantly reduced, reflecting lingering suspicion. The official verdict recorded no cause for the abandonment, an open finding remarkable for its emptiness. The Court of Gibraltar had examined the ship, heard every witness, reviewed every piece of evidence, and admitted it simply did not know. 10 people had vanished from the face of the earth, and no authority on record could say why. On the board so far, a key clue: missing sole lifeboat. Now we pin up a key clue: frayed trailing rope. Chapter 10. Your turn. Solve the board. Every clue from the Mary Celeste now sits before us. Let's lay them side by side. The timeline shows a 10-day gap between the last log entry, November 25th, 1872, and the Dei Gratia's discovery on December 5th. That final log entry was calm. No distress, no warning, no fear recorded in the ink. The frayed rope trailed behind the hull, cut or snapped under sudden, violent tension. The ship's navigation instruments, chronometer, sextant, were gone, taken deliberately. 9 of the 18 alcohol barrels in the hold were empty, but there was no spill, no smell. The single lifeboat was gone, suggesting 10 people left together in one urgent departure. Now, pause here with me. What single trigger could make a captain abandon a seaworthy ship with his wife and daughter aboard? Fear of explosion, mutiny, water spout, seaquake. Each theory answers some clues, but breaks against others. No single explanation has ever accounted for all of it. The rope, the instruments, the calm log, the empty barrels together. This is your moment. Build your theory in the comments below. Tell us what you think happened on that ship. Subscribe to follow this investigation, because one piece of evidence we haven't shown you yet may change everything you just decided. On the board so far, a key clue: frayed trailing rope. Now we pin up a key clue: intact cargo and provisions.